Lucy Morgan had mastered the art of reading tables before she even reached them. 6 years working at the Constellation Room taught her things no training program could. The way guests held their menus revealed whether they wanted recommendations or silence. How they positioned their bodies told her if this was celebration or obligation. She noticed everything because noticing kept her employed and employment kept her fed. Tonight, Table 12 radiated something she had never felt before. 4 dragons sat in careful arrangement, leaving exactly equal space between each chair. Their formal robes were immaculate, their postures military perfect, but their eyes held the kind of tired that sleep could never fix. Lucy had served plenty of dragon customers, but these ones made the air feel heavier. She approached with water glasses balanced on her tray, her smile professional but genuine. Dragons were easy customers once you learned their preferences. They tipped well, never complained, and rarely looked servers in the eye. These 4 did not even glance up as she filled their glasses. "Good evening. My name is Lucy and I'll be taking care of you tonight." She set down the last glass in front of the massive red-scaled dragon at the head of the table. "Can I start you off with drinks, or would you like a moment to look over the menu?" The red dragon's voice came out rough, like gravel scraping stone. "Water is sufficient." The others nodded agreement. Lucy made a note on her tablet. Usually dragons ordered the fermented grain spirits, especially the military types. These 4 sat like they were at a funeral, not a reunion dinner. "I'll give you some time with the menu then. Just signal when you're ready to order." She started to turn away. "Wait." The blue-scaled dragon spoke quietly. "What do you recommend for someone who has not eaten in—" He paused. "In a very long time." Lucy smiled. "The braised stellarfish is gentle on the stomach but satisfying. Comes with root vegetables that most species tolerate well." She caught herself studying their faces, seeing past the scales to the expressions underneath. These were not business partners meeting after years apart. These were old soldiers who had survived something terrible together. "That sounds acceptable," the blue dragon said. The green-scaled dragon ordered the same. So did the smallest one, whose copper scales caught the light. The red dragon simply nodded, making it unanimous. Lucy entered their orders, then hesitated. "If you don't mind me saying, the private rooms are available. Quieter than the main floor. No charge to move if you'd prefer." The red dragon's eyes finally met hers. They were gold and ancient and sad. "You are perceptive, young human, but no. We have hidden long enough." Lucy nodded and retreated to the kitchen, filing that comment away with all the other small mysteries she collected during her shifts. She delivered drinks to 3 other tables, took 2 dessert orders, and helped a Centauri diplomat locate the restroom before returning to Table 12 with their meals. She served the blue dragon first out of habit, working clockwise. As she set the plate in front of the red dragon, his formal sleeve shifted back. For just a moment she saw his forearm. The tattoo was small, precise, and instantly familiar. Lucy's hands froze. The water pitcher tilted dangerously before she caught it. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she stared at the mark. 4 stars arranged in a diamond pattern with crossed weapons behind them. She had seen that exact image every single day for the last 11 years. The words left her mouth before her brain could stop them. "My mom has your tattoo." The entire table went silent. Not just quiet, but the kind of absolute stillness that happens when time itself holds its breath. 4 pairs of ancient eyes locked onto her face. The noise of the restaurant continued around them, but inside their bubble the universe had paused. The red dragon's water glass slipped from his claws and shattered on the floor. He did not look down. None of them did. "What?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "What did you say?" Lucy's hands shook as she carefully set down the water pitcher. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out the thin plastic square she carried everywhere. Her fingers fumbled as she held it up. The photo was old, the corners worn soft from handling. Her mother smiled out from the image, young and alive, wearing medical scrubs. The tattoo on her shoulder was clearly visible. 4 stars and a diamond. Crossed weapons behind them. Standing on either side of her mother were 2 dragons. Younger versions, but unmistakable. The blue-scaled doctor and the red-scaled general now sitting at this table. The blue dragon made a sound like air escaping from a punctured hull. The copper dragon covered her mouth with both claws. The green dragon simply stared. "Her name," the red dragon said slowly, like each word cost him something precious. "What was your mother's name?" Lucy's throat felt tight. "Rachel Morgan. She died 11 years ago. They said it was a shuttle accident." She looked at the photo, then back at them. "But she had this tattoo." I never knew what it meant. Nobody would tell me. The red dragon stood slowly, his massive frame unfolding to full height. Other diners turned to look. He did not notice. He reached out with one trembling claw and touched the edge of the photo with impossible gentleness. Rachel of Terra. His voice broke on the name. We thought you died with her. They told us she had no family. They told us she was alone. Lucy felt the restaurant spinning around her. You knew her? You actually knew my mother? The blue dragon stood as well, tears tracking down his scaled cheeks. Knew her? Young one, your mother saved my life. Saved all our lives, not once. 17 times I counted, and I stopped counting. The green dragon's voice was thick. We have been searching for you for 11 years. An older human man appeared at the edge of their table. Station Master Yeldon, who Lucy knew from the administrative offices. His weathered face held an expression she could not read. I think, he said quietly, we should continue this conversation somewhere more private. Lucy, your shift is covered. Come with us. It's time you learned the truth. Lucy looked at the photo in her shaking hands, at her mother's smile, at the tattoo she had traced with her fingers 1,000 times without understanding. She looked at 4 ancient dragons who were crying openly now, who looked at her like she was a ghost made flesh. Who was she? Lucy whispered. Who was my mother, really? The red dragon extended his claw toward her, an invitation and a promise. She was the best of us, and she should never have been forgotten. The universe tilted and Lucy's simple life cracked open like an egg, revealing something vast and complicated underneath. The private room smelled like old leather and recycled air. Lucy sat in a chair too large for her frame, while 4 dragons arranged themselves around the circular table. Station Master Yeldon closed the door and stood against it like a guard, though Lucy suspected he was blocking her escape route more than protecting them from intrusion. She placed the photo on the table between them. Under the warm lights, her mother's face looked even younger than Lucy remembered. The tattoo seemed darker, more significant now that she knew these dragons recognized it. The 4th Deep Space Legion, the red dragon said, tapping the image with one claw. Your mother wore this mark because she earned it. Every being in our unit carried this tattoo. It meant you had survived the void border. I don't understand. Lucy looked at Yeldon. My mother was a shuttle pilot, civilian transport. She died in an accident during a routine supply run. Yeldon's expression turned sad. That was the story we gave you. The story we were ordered to give you. We? Lucy felt anger rising through her confusion. You knew about this? You've known this whole time? I served in logistics during the war, same sector as the 4th Legion. Yeldon moved to the table and sat down heavily. I was there when they brought your mother's body back. I was also there when they sealed all the records and reassigned every human who served in combat roles. We were told it was for security purposes. We were told a lot of things. The blue dragon spoke next, his voice more controlled than before. My name is Dr. Sareth. I was the medical officer for our unit. Your mother was my counterpart, the human medic assigned to us. He paused. Do you know anything about the Void Border Wars? Lucy shook her head. Basic history. Some kind of conflict with an alien collective. It ended before I was born. 12 years of fighting, the green dragon said. 12 years in deep space against an enemy that wanted to consume everything. I am Commander Thera. I flew reconnaissance missions into territory where stars died. Your mother patched me back together after I crashed 6 times. The copper dragon spoke for the first time, her voice soft. Lieutenant Nira, communications officer. I was 19 years old when the war started. I was 23 when I tried to kill myself. Your mother talked me down from that edge. She sat with me for 16 hours straight until I could breathe again. Lucy looked at each of them in turn. My mother was a medic. She helped wounded soldiers. That's not something they would need to hide. She was more than a medic. General Kravik, the red dragon, leaned forward. She was a psychiatric specialist. The humans you call medics, we called them something else. Anchors. Because they kept us from drifting away into the dark. Sareth picked up the explanation. Dragons are not built for prolonged warfare. Our psychology, our cultural framework. It requires honor, clear victories, defined endings. The Void Border offered none of those things. Just endless darkness, endless death, and an enemy that felt nothing. We started breaking within the first year. Breaking how? Lucy asked, though part of her already knew the answer from looking at their faces. Suicide rates reached 40% in some units, Thera said bluntly. Combat effectiveness dropped because soldiers would freeze during engagements or make reckless choices hoping to die. Our proud warrior culture had no vocabulary for what we were experiencing. No framework for processing that kind of sustained trauma. Nira added quietly. I watched my entire communications team die in an ambush. All 7 of them. I was the only survivor because I was in the restroom. For months afterward, I could not speak without hearing their last screams on the channel. Every word I said felt like betrayal because they would never speak again. The military tried everything, Kravik continued. Medications, therapy protocols, rotations. Nothing worked. Dragons were dying faster from their own claws than from enemy weapons. Then someone in command had an idea. A desperate, impossible idea. Humans, Lucy whispered. Humans, Sareth confirmed. Your species had only been part of galactic society for 7 years. You were considered primitive in most ways. Weak bodies, short lifespans, limited technological development. But you had something no other species possessed. Something we did not even have a word for in our language. Emotional intelligence, Yeldon said. The ability to read feelings, to provide comfort, to hold space for pain without trying to fix it. Humans could sit with suffering in a way that helped others process it. Thera smiled sadly. Your mother arrived at our unit with 12 other human medics. We thought it was an insult. They were sending us these tiny, fragile beings who could barely lift our medical equipment. We thought command had given up on us. What changed? Lucy asked. First night jump, Kravik said. 20 hours in hyperspace. Longest stretch any of us had endured in months. We were all showing signs of breaking. I was considering stepping out the airlock. Then your mother sat down next to me in the observation deck. He closed his eyes, remembering. She did not offer platitudes, did not tell me it would be fine or that I needed to be strong. She just sat there. After an hour, she started humming. Some Earth song I had never heard. Simple melody. She hummed it for 3 hours while I cried. A general of the dragon military crying like a hatchling, and this human just hummed and stayed. She taught us breathing exercises, Sareth said. Sounds ridiculous. Ancient warriors learning to breathe. But it worked. She taught us how to recognize when our thoughts were spiraling, how to anchor ourselves in the present moment. She listened to our stories about the fallen without trying to make the pain go away. Nira's voice was thick. She helped me write letters to the families of my team. Letters I never sent but needed to write. She sat through my nightmares. She learned dragon morning rituals and helped me perform them properly. She made me feel like my grief mattered, like surviving mattered. The 4th Legion had 0 psychiatric casualties after your mother joined us, Kravik said. 0. In the remaining 8 years of the war. Every other unit was still hemorrhaging soldiers to despair, but we held. Because of her. Because of the other human anchors. Lucy felt tears on her cheeks. If she was so important, why hide it?
Why erase what she did?
Because it scared them. Yeldon's voice was hard. The Galactic Council saw what human anchors accomplished, and it terrified them. Dragons, the dominant military power in the galaxy, had become psychologically dependent on humans. What did that mean for the balance of power? What if other species wanted human anchors? What if humans realized they had leverage? Sareth nodded. After the war ended, there were councils, committees, debates. The conservative faction argued that admitting we needed humans showed weakness, that it would undermine dragon authority across the galaxy. They wanted the program classified, the humans reassigned, the records sealed. They won the debate, Kravik said bitterly. Every human anchor was pulled from service. We were told it was temporary, that there would be transition protocols. Instead, they were scattered across the galaxy with new identities and fake histories. We were forbidden from contacting them. Thera's claws scraped the table. We tried to fight it. But we were just soldiers. The politicians decided that dragon pride was more important than dragon lives. Mental health rates among veterans are worse now than during the war because we lost the anchors who taught us how to cope. My mother, Lucy said slowly. How did she really die? The 4 dragons exchanged glances. Kravik spoke carefully. There was a faction that wanted the anchor program permanently buried. They were eliminating evidence. Your mother had copies of records, proof of what humans accomplished. She was hiding on a transport station, trying to get the data to journalists who would publish it. They found her. Sareth said quietly. Set charges throughout the station. She could have evacuated. She had time. But she stayed on the communication system, warning people, guiding them to escape pods. She saved 417 beings that day. We arrived too late, Kravik said. Found you in the station's child care center. You were 12 years old, crying for your mother. We wanted to take you, to protect you, to honor our debt to Rachel. But the authorities took you first. Put you in a civilian foster system. Gave you a sanitized story. We have been searching for you ever since, but the records were sealed. We only found you because Yeldon recognized your mother's eyes when you started working here 3 years ago. Lucy looked at the old human. You've been watching me. Protecting you, he corrected. The same faction that killed your mother is still active. Still ensuring the anchor program stays buried. I kept you off their radar by keeping you ordinary. Just another human working a normal job. If they knew who you were, what you represent. What do I represent? Lucy asked, Nira answered. Hope. Proof that the bonds between humans and dragons were real. That they mattered. You are Rachel Morgan's daughter. The galaxy tried to erase her, but here you sit, living evidence that they failed. Lucy stared at the photo of her mother, seeing it completely differently now. Not just a parent, but a hero. A warrior who fought with compassion instead of weapons. A human who showed dragons how to survive their own minds. She died protecting the truth, Lucy said. Yes, Kravik confirmed. And you want me to stay hidden, stay safe. Let her sacrifice mean nothing. The dragons went quiet. Yeldon leaned forward. Lucy, I know what you're thinking, but my mother died so people would know what humans and dragons built together. Lucy stood up, her hands flat on the table. She died believing it mattered. I've spent 11 years thinking she was nobody special. Now I find out she was extraordinary, and you want me to keep pretending she was not. Thera smiled. You are your mother's daughter. Lucy picked up the photo and held it to her chest. Tell me everything. Every detail, every story, every moment. If they want to bury the truth, then I need to know exactly what truth they are so afraid of. Kravik's eyes gleamed. That will take many nights. Then we better start now, Lucy said, because I'm not hiding anymore. 3 weeks passed in a blur of revelations. Lucy's apartment became a gathering place where old soldiers told stories until dawn. She learned that her mother had kept journals, detailed accounts of her methods and observations. Yeldon had hidden them for years, waiting for the right moment. Now Lucy read them every night, her mother's handwriting making her feel connected across time and death. The journals were practical, almost clinical. Notes about breathing patterns and anxiety triggers. Observations about how different dragons process trauma. Techniques for grounding someone during a flashback. But between the clinical notes were personal moments. Her mother's doubts, her fears, her absolute conviction that this work mattered. Tonight, Lucy sat in her small living room with Kravik and Sareth. The other dragons had duties, but these two had taken voluntary retirement to stay near her. They claimed it was coincidence. Lucy knew better. Read this part, Lucy said, pointing to an entry from 6 years into the war. She talks about you, Kravik. The old general adjusted his reading glasses and leaned close to the page. His voice was soft as he read aloud. General Kravik confessed today that he has not slept more than 2 hours at a time in 8 months. He believes rest is selfish when his soldiers are dying. I tried to explain that exhaustion makes him a liability, but logic does not work on guilt. Instead, I stayed with him during sleep cycle. Told him someone needed to keep watch so he could rest. It worked. He slept 6 hours. Sometimes the lies we tell are kinder than the truths we know. Kravik closed his eyes. I remember that. I woke up and she was still there, sitting in the chair by my bunk, reading some Earth book. She looked up and smiled like it was normal to waste 6 hours watching a general sleep. It was not a waste, Sareth said firmly. You were effective again after that. Made good tactical decisions instead of reckless ones. Lucy turned more pages. She wrote about you too, here. She pointed to another entry. Sareth read silently, then spoke. Dr. Sareth refuses to acknowledge his own trauma because he is too busy treating everyone else's. Today I found him in the medical bay at 0300, inventorying supplies he had already inventoried twice. His hands were shaking. I asked him to teach me the proper way to organize the trauma kits. Kept him talking about procedures instead of memories. After an hour, his hand steadied. He will not accept help, but he will accept company. I can work with that. You were sneaky, Sareth said to the journal as if Rachel could hear him. I thought I was teaching you. You were actually treating me. She did that a lot, Lucy said. The journals are full of it. She never approached anything directly. Always found side angles, ways to help without making it obvious. Kravik gestured to another section. What did she write about the night of the Hollow Moon battle? Lucy flipped through pages until she found it. The entry was longer than most, the handwriting shakier. She read it aloud. We lost 63 soldiers today, the largest single-day casualty count of the war. The surviving unit members are in shock. No amount of training prepared them for watching their squad mates get consumed by the collective. I spent 4 hours in the Memorial Bay while dragons performed their death rites. I did not understand all the rituals, but I stood witness. That felt important. Afterward, Lieutenant Nira asked me why I stayed. She said humans do not have the same honor obligations regarding the dead. I told her that maybe humans do not have the obligation, but we have the choice. We choose to stand with those who mourn because grief should not be solitary. She cried then. They all did. And I realized something today. This is not about having the right words or the perfect technique. This is about showing up, about being present in the pain. Humans can do that. We can sit in the hurt and not run from it. Maybe that is our real strength. Not that we fix anything, but that we stay. The room went quiet. Sareth wiped his eyes. Kravik stared at the ceiling. That was the moment I understood what she was doing. Kravik finally said, We dragons, we are raised to be strong, to overcome, to conquer even our own weaknesses. But some things cannot be conquered. Some pain just has to be felt. Your mother taught us it was acceptable to feel it. That surviving meant more than just staying alive. Lucy closed the journal carefully. The galaxy tried to erase this. They wanted everyone to forget that humans could do this. They are still trying, Sareth said. Current dragon military has psychiatrists, but they are dragons. They approach mental health like a problem to solve with medication and discipline. It works poorly. Suicide rates among young dragons are climbing again. Because they have no anchors, Lucy said. Because they have no humans, Kravik corrected. Other species can be trained in psychology, but there is something about human presence that cannot be replicated. Your species reads emotions instinctively. You mirror them back in ways that help others process. You do it naturally without thinking. Lucy thought about her years at the Constellation Room, how she could tell what customers needed before they asked, how she could diffuse tension with a smile or well-timed joke, how she knew when someone needed conversation versus silence. She had always thought those were just good service skills. I do it too, she said slowly. Not just at work, everywhere. I thought everyone could. Not like humans, Sareth said. I have studied this extensively since the war. Human brains are wired for empathy in unique ways. You evolved as social creatures who needed to cooperate closely to survive. That history shaped your neurology. You read microexpressions, vocal tones, body language automatically. For other species, those are learned skills. For humans, they are instincts, Kravik added. And you use those instincts to help, not harm. You could manipulate with such skills. Some species do. But humans tend to use their empathy to support others. That combination, instinctive empathy plus genuine compassion, that is what made the Anchor program work. Lucy stood and walked to her window. The station sprawled below. Millions of beings from hundreds of species living in careful proximity. She thought about her mother walking these same corridors, carrying the weight of keeping soldiers sane during the worst war the galaxy had seen. What happened to the other anchors? She asked. The other humans who served with Mom? Scattered, Yeldon's voice came from the doorway. Lucy had not heard him enter, but she was getting used to his sudden appearances. We have located 17 so far. Some died of natural causes, some disappeared entirely. A few are living under new identities like your mother did. We have been reaching out carefully. How many are left? Lucy asked. Of the original 300 anchors deployed during the war, we have confirmed 142 are still alive. Most do not know others like them exist. The government was very thorough in separating everyone. Lucy turned to face them. And the dragons they served with? The ones who had anchors? Many are still searching, Sareth said. Like we searched for you, but most have given up hope. 35 years is a long time. Memories fade, people move on. Or they do not move on, Kravik said quietly. They just stop believing reunion is possible. An idea was forming in Lucy's mind, something her mother would have done. Something sideways and subtle but potentially powerful. What if we brought them together? She said. The surviving anchors and the dragons who served with them. What if we proved the bonds were real? The government would shut it down immediately, Yeldon said. They have kept this buried for decades. They will not allow it to surface now. What if they could not stop it? Lucy pressed. What if it was not official? Just old friends reconnecting? Private gatherings. Nothing political. Kravik's eyes gleamed with understanding. Start small. A few reunions. Word would spread organically through the veteran community. And once enough dragons see proof that anchors still exist. Still remember them. Thera's voice came from behind Yeldon as she squeezed into the apartment. It becomes impossible to suppress the truth. It would be dangerous, Sareth warned. For you especially, Lucy. You would become the face of this movement. My mother died for this truth, Lucy said firmly. She believed it mattered enough to sacrifice everything. The least I can do is risk being uncomfortable. Nira appeared in the doorway next to Thera. The apartment was getting crowded. I know 3 dragons from my communications unit. They have been struggling since the war. If they knew I was alive, if we could reconnect I can reach at least a dozen from the 4th Legion, Kravik said. Medical staff networks are extensive, Sareth added. I could contact 40 dragons within a week. Lucy felt electricity in the air the moment when possibility becomes momentum. Then we start. Quiet, careful, just old soldiers meeting old friends. We let the truth speak for itself. Yeldon looked worried. The faction that killed your mother will notice eventually. Let them notice, Lucy said. Let them see that killing one person did not kill the truth. My mother wrote that humans stay present in the pain. We do not run from it. Well, I am staying. I am being present. And I am not running. Kravik stood and placed one massive claw gently on Lucy's shoulder. Your mother would be proud. Terrified, but proud. Terrified and proud seem to go together, Lucy said with a small smile. How do we start? Thera pulled out a data pad. I have a list of contacts. Dragons who served with human anchors. Many are here on Crosspoint Station. This is a hub for veterans. We could arrange a gathering. Something casual. A memorial service, perhaps, for fallen comrades. A memorial service is perfect, Lucy said. Public enough to be legitimate, private enough to be safe. We honor the fallen and reconnect the living. When? Sareth asked. Lucy looked at the journal still open on her table, her mother's words visible on the page. When she spoke, her voice was steady. 3 weeks from today. That gives us time to reach people and make arrangements. We hold it at the Constellation Room, where this all started, where I recognized the tattoo that changed everything. The dragons exchanged glances and nodded. Yeldon still looked concerned, but he nodded too. 3 weeks then, Kravik said. We bring the lost together and see what happens when truth refuses to stay buried. Lucy picked up the photo of her mother and held it close. In the image, her mother smiled between 2 young dragons, wearing a tattoo that marked her as family. Lucy touched her own shoulder, the same spot where her mother's tattoo had been. I think, she said quietly, I need to earn that mark myself. Would your unit accept new members? Kravik's eyes widened. Then slowly he smiled. It was the first real smile Lucy had seen on his face. The 4th Deep Space Legion would be honored to have Rachel's daughter. Sareth bowed his head. We should have asked you first. Welcome to the family, Lucy Morgan. Nira and Thera pressed their claws to their chests in salute. Lucy returned the gesture awkwardly, not quite getting the angle right. They laughed and it sounded like relief. 3 weeks to change everything. Lucy got to work. The memorial service drew a larger crowd than Lucy expected. The Constellation Room had cleared its main dining area, arranging chairs in concentric circles around a central memorial space. Dragons filled most seats, their formal mourning robes in deep purples and blacks creating a sea of somber color. Scattered among them were humans, some old enough to have served, others young like Lucy who carried inherited grief. Lucy stood near the entrance, greeting arrivals. She wore a simple black dress, and on her shoulder, fresh and still tender, was the tattoo of the 4th Deep Space Legion. She had gotten it 2 days ago. Kravik had gone with her to a human tattoo artist who specialized in memorial work. The artist had cried when he learned what the mark meant. Turned out his grandfather had been an anchor too. 68 confirmed attendees, Yeldon murmured beside her. More than we hoped. And I am seeing dragons from at least 9 different units based on their insignia. Lucy watched an elderly human woman enter, supported by a middle-aged dragon who held her arm with extreme gentleness. The woman's eyes scanned the room, then locked onto Sareth. She gasped. The dragon supporting her made a choked sound. They crossed the room in a rush, and suddenly all three were embracing, crying openly. "Dr. Sareth," the woman said. "Is it really you?" "Hannah of Earth," Sareth breathed. "I thought you were dead. They told me you died 20 years ago." The dragon supporting Hannah spoke through tears. "She was my anchor. In the 7th Legion, when they separated us, I thought I would never see her again." Similar reunions were happening throughout the room. Lucy watched a young human man stare in shock at 3 dragons who approached him hesitantly. "Dad," he said, "these are the dragons from your photos, the ones you said died." His father, a man in his 60s, stood frozen. "They told me you were all killed. The Battle of the Rim, they said no one survived." "We survived," one dragon said, "and we have been looking for you ever since." The emotional temperature in the room was rising. Lucy saw joy and grief mixing in equal measure. Old wounds opening and beginning to heal simultaneously. This was more powerful than she had imagined. Thera appeared at her elbow. "We have a problem, look." Lucy followed her gaze to the entrance. A group of 5 dragons had arrived, wearing formal government robes rather than military insignia. Their leader was an imposing silver-scaled dragon with cold eyes. He surveyed the room with obvious disapproval. "Senator Krell," Yeldon said quietly, "conservative faction. Very vocal opponent of human-dragon integration. Should we ask him to leave?" Lucy asked on Too Late. "He is a senator. Removing him would cause a diplomatic incident." Yeldon straightened his shoulders. "Let me handle this." But Krell was already approaching Lucy directly. The room noticed, conversations dropping to whispers. "You must be the human causing all this trouble," Krell said without preamble. His voice was smooth, educated, dangerous. "Rachel Morgan's daughter. How unfortunate that you inherited your mother's tendency for disruption." Lucy felt anger flare but kept her voice level. "This is a memorial service, Senator. We are honoring fallen comrades. Surely you do not object to that." "I object to the lie this represents." Krell gestured at the room. These people gathering under false pretenses, pretending that the anchor program was legitimate when it was a mistake that should stay buried. "A mistake?" Hannah's voice cut across the room. She had detached from Sareth and approached them, leaning on her cane. "My work saved lives. I have testimony from 47 dragons who say I gave them reason to keep living. That is not a mistake. It was a weakness," Krell said coldly. "Dragons depending on humans for psychological stability. It undermined our authority across the galaxy, made us look fragile." "We were fragile," Kravik said, moving to stand beside Lucy. "The war broke us. The anchors put us back together. That is not weakness. That is survival." Krell's eyes narrowed. "General Kravik, I should have known you would be involved in this. Your unit's attachment to human personnel was always problematic. But the war is over. We evolved past needing them. Have we?" A young dragon stepped forward from the crowd. He was barely into adulthood, his scales still bright with youth. "I am Lieutenant Voss. I served in the Outer Rim conflicts last year. I tried to kill myself 3 times before I was discharged. The military psychiatrists gave me medication and told me to be stronger. Nothing helped. I thought I was defective." He looked around the room at the older veterans. "But listening to you all tonight, hearing about the anchors, I understand now. I am not broken. I just did not have what you had. I did not have a human to help me process what I experienced." Other young dragons murmured agreement. Lucy realized several were present, drawn by rumors of the gathering. They stood out among the older veterans, their scales brighter, their bodies less scarred, but their eyes held the same exhaustion. Krell's expression hardened. "This is exactly the problem. You are teaching young soldiers that they need humans, that they cannot cope alone. It creates dependency. It creates partnership," Lucy said firmly. She was done being diplomatic. "My mother did not make dragons weak. She made them human. She taught them that feeling pain does not mean failing, that needing help is not shameful. Those are not dragon lessons or human lessons. Those are just true." "Your mother was an anomaly," Krell said dismissively. "A handful of humans with some basic empathy training does not constitute a revolutionary program. Then why are you so afraid of it?" Lucy shot back. "If it was meaningless, you would ignore this gathering. Instead, you came here personally to shut it down. That suggests you know exactly how powerful it was." Krell took a step toward her, using his height as intimidation. "You are playing with forces you do not understand, child. There are reasons the program was classified. Political reasons. Security reasons. There is one reason," Sareth interrupted. "Pride. Dragon pride could not accept that we needed help from a species we considered primitive. So you buried the truth and let veterans suffer rather than admit humans had something to teach us." "How dare you?" Krell began, but a new voice cut him off. "He is correct." An ancient dragon entered the room. Her scales white with age, her movements slow but dignified. The entire room went silent. Even Krell stepped back. "Matriarch Sora," Kravik breathed, bowing deeply. The matriarch was one of the oldest living dragons, a warrior from conflicts that predated the Void Border Wars. Her opinion carried weight that transcended politics. She moved to the center of the memorial space and looked around at the gathered veterans. "I have lived 900 years. I have fought in 14 wars. I have watched our people conquer worlds and build empires, but I have never seen us more lost than we are now." She turned to Krell. "You speak of pride, Senator, but pride without wisdom is just arrogance. I was not in the Void Border Wars. I was too old, relegated to advisory positions. But I read the classified reports. I know what the anchor program accomplished. 0 psychiatric casualties in units with human anchors. 0. Do you understand what that means? In the bloodiest war we ever fought, the units with humans came home whole." Krell's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Sora continued. "Since the war ended, our young soldiers suffer at rates we have not seen in centuries. They are dying by their own claws because we are too proud to admit that humans understood something about surviving trauma that we did not. That is not strength. That is stupidity." She approached Lucy and examined her tattoo with careful attention. "You wear the mark of the 4th Legion. Did you earn this?" "No, Matriarch," Lucy said honestly. "Not yet. But I intend to." "How?" Lucy took a breath. "My mother taught dragons how to survive their own minds. She showed them that emotional pain deserves the same care as physical wounds. I want to do the same. Not because humans are better than dragons, but because we are different, and sometimes different perspectives save lives." Sora studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Rachel Morgan was offered a medal after her death. The government refused to present it because acknowledging her service would acknowledge the program. I still have that medal." She reached into her robes and pulled out a small case. Inside was an ornate decoration, dragon-forged metal shaped into flames and stars. "This was meant for your mother. But she is beyond such honors now. So I give it to you, not as a reward, but as a responsibility. You carry her work forward. You honor those bonds." Lucy accepted the medal with shaking hands. "I will, Matriarch. I promise." Sora turned to address the entire room. "Let it be known that I support the restoration of human-dragon partnerships for mental health support. Any senator who wishes to oppose this can explain to me personally why they believe politics is more important than veterans' lives." She looked directly at Krell when she said it. He bowed stiffly and retreated toward the exit with his entourage. As they left, Krell paused beside Lucy. "You have won this round, but this is not over. There are powerful forces that do not want this history revealed." "Then they should stop trying to bury it," Lucy said quietly, "because I am done being silent. And I am not alone." She gestured to the room full of veterans, humans, and dragons standing together. "This is just the beginning." Krell's eyes promised future conflict, but he said nothing more. He left, and the room seemed to breathe easier. Kravik placed his claw on Lucy's shoulder. "Your mother would be proud. And terrified." "Seems to be a theme," Lucy said. She looked at the metal in her hands, feeling its weight. Not the physical weight, but what it represented. Legacy and responsibility and hope. The memorial service continued, but it had transformed into something else. Not just remembrance, but reunion. Not just grief, but renewal. Around her, humans and dragons reconnected, shared stories, and began rebuilding bonds that politics tried to destroy. Lucy thought about her mother's journal, the entry about showing up and staying present in the pain. She was showing up now. She was staying. And she was not alone. The truth was surfacing, and it turned out truth was harder to bury than anyone expected. The explosion happened 3 days after the memorial service. Lucy was walking through the market district when the shockwave threw her against a wall. Her ears rang, vision blurred. Smoke filled the corridor. People screamed in multiple languages, training she did not know she had kicked in. Lucy pulled herself up and moved toward the blast site instead of away. Bodies lay scattered, some moving, others still. She knelt beside a Centauri child who was crying, checked for injuries, found nothing critical. She moved to the next person, then the next, organizing triage before the medical teams arrived. A dragon lay pinned under debris. Lucy recognized him. Lieutenant Voss, the young veteran who had spoken at the memorial. His leg was crushed, blood spreading on the deck. "Hey," Lucy said, kneeling beside him. "Stay with me." "Help is coming. I can't feel my leg," he gasped. "I can't feel it." "That is probably better right now," Lucy said, keeping her voice calm while her hands checked his pulse. Too fast. He was going into shock. "Tell me about your unit. What did you do in the outer rim?" "Navigation," he managed. "Charted the debris fields." "That sounds terrifying," Lucy said, finding pressure points to slow the bleeding. "Tell me the scariest moment." Voss started talking, his words tumbling out in a panicked stream. Lucy listened and worked, keeping him focused on memory instead of pain. When the medical team arrived, they looked surprised to find her covered in blood but completely composed. "You trained for this?" the lead medic asked. "My mother did," Lucy said. "Guess it runs in the family." Hours later, cleaned up but exhausted, Lucy sat in Yeldon's office. Kravik, Sarith, Thera, and Nira surrounded her. The mood was grim. "The bomb was meant for you," Yeldon said without preamble. "Timed to your usual route through the market. You left early today to help with supply orders. That randomness saved your life." Lucy felt cold. "They are actually trying to kill me." "The same faction that killed your mother," Kravik confirmed. "They left a message this time. Posted on several underground networks. It says that anyone promoting human-dragon integration will be considered a threat to galactic stability." "How many died?" Lucy asked quietly. 8 confirmed dead. 23 injured, including Lieutenant Voss. Sarith's voice was heavy. "All because someone decided your message was too dangerous." Lucy stood and walked to the window. Outside, station security was everywhere, scanning for additional threats. People moved nervously through corridors that usually felt safe. "They want me afraid," she said. "They want me to stop." "It would be reasonable to stop," Yeldon said carefully. "You are 23 years old. You should not have to risk your life for this." "My mother was 29 when she started," Lucy said. "She risked everything. Got 11 years of making a difference before they killed her." She turned to face them. "If I stop, those 8 people died for nothing. If I stop, the message is clear. Violence works. Truth can be murdered." "Lucy," Thera said gently. "Courage is admirable, but this is not your war." "Yes, it is." Lucy's voice was firm. "They made it my war when they killed my mother. When they tried to erase what she built. When they decided that dragon pride was worth more than veterans' lives." She looked at each of them. "You all fought in a war to protect the galaxy. I am fighting a war to protect a truth. Different battlefields, same stakes." Kravik stood slowly. "If you continue this path, we stay with you. The 4th Legion protects its own." "Agreed," Sarith said. Thera and Nira nodded. "Then we need to change tactics," Lucy said. She had been thinking about this since she pulled herself out of the rubble. "They are attacking because we are visible but vulnerable. A small movement, easy to target. We need to become bigger." "Harder to suppress, how?" Yeldon asked. "We go public. Completely public." Lucy pulled up her datapad and started typing. "I write everything down. My mother's story, the anchor program, what it accomplished, why it was buried. I publish it everywhere. Every news network, every social platform, every academic journal that will take it." "That will make you more of a target," Nira protested. "No," Lucy said. "It will make me harder to kill quietly. Right now, I am nobody, just some waitress making noise. If I die, it barely registers. But if I publish first, if the story is out there, then killing me makes me a martyr. It validates everything I said. They lose either way." Yeldon leaned back in his chair, considering. "It is risky, but strategically sound. The information wants to be public anyway. We have been slowly leaking it through reunion events. This just accelerates the timeline. We need supporting voices," Sarith said. "Other anchors willing to go on record. Veterans who will testify to the program's effectiveness. Academic researchers who can provide data." "I can get those," Lucy said. "We have been building that network since the memorial. Hannah has already said she will speak publicly. 3 other human anchors have agreed as well. We have testimony from over 50 dragons across 12 different units. Thera pulled up military statistics on her pad. I have been compiling data. Want to see something damning? In units with human anchors, psychiatric casualty rates were 0.3%. In units without anchors, they were 38%. That is not a small difference. That is the difference between functional and broken. And current rates? Lucy asked. Among young veterans, 42% are diagnosed with some form of trauma disorder within 5 years of service. That is worse than during the war. Thera's voice was angry. We are failing our own children because we are too proud to admit humans had a solution. Lucy's datapad chimed. She glanced at it and smiled. Matriarch Sora just sent me a statement. She is willing to go on record supporting the restoration of anchor programs. That is significant political cover. We will need it, Yeldon said. When you publish this, the backlash will be immediate. Not just from the conservative faction, but from dragons across the spectrum who do not want to admit their people need help. Then we frame it differently, Lucy said. Not as dragons needing humans. As both species being better together. Partnership, not dependence. We emphasize that humans benefited too. My mother's journals talk about how much she learned from dragon resilience. Their honor codes, their cultural approaches to duty. Kravik nodded slowly. That could work. It shifts the narrative from weakness to strength through diversity. When do you want to publish? Sareth asked. Lucy checked her datapad. I can have the primary article written in 3 days. Then we coordinate release across multiple platforms simultaneously, make it impossible to suppress. I know journalists at 4 major networks, Yeldon said. They have been asking questions since the memorial. I have been holding them off, but now we bring them in. I can reach the academic community, Sareth added. Medical journals, psychiatric research networks. They will be very interested in the data. Military channels, Kravik said. I still have contacts. Not everyone agrees with the current approach to veteran care. Some will welcome alternatives. Lucy looked at them all. This is really happening. We are actually going to challenge the entire political establishment. Your mother did it with less support, Thera said, and she nearly succeeded. This time we finish what she started. They spent the next several hours planning. Who would speak to which outlets? How to coordinate the releases? What security measures to implement? As they worked, Lucy felt her mother's presence like a hand on her shoulder guiding her. When the others finally left, only Kravik remained. He sat across from Lucy in silence for a moment. You are afraid, he said. It was not a question. Terrified, Lucy admitted. They already tried to kill me once. This will make it worse. Yes, it will. But my mother wrote something in her journal. She said that fear is just information. It tells you something matters. If you are not afraid, you are probably not doing anything important. Lucy met his eyes. I am afraid because this matters. Because getting it right could save thousands of lives. Because getting it wrong could get me killed. That fear means I am awake, aware, taking this seriously. Kravik nodded slowly. Your mother also wrote that courage is not the absence of fear. It is fear plus movement. You keep going even though you are terrified. That is what makes it brave. Did she write that? She told me that. After I admitted I was afraid every single day of the war. Kravik's ancient eyes were soft with memory. I thought admitting fear meant I was weak. She taught me that acknowledging fear meant I was honest, and that honesty made me a better leader because my soldiers knew I understood what they felt. Lucy smiled. She was smart. She was extraordinary. And so are you. Kravik stood. Get some rest. The next few weeks will be difficult. You will need your strength. After he left, Lucy sat alone in the quiet office. She pulled up her mother's photo on her datapad, looked at the young woman smiling between 2 dragons, wearing a tattoo that marked her as family. I hope I am doing this right, Mom, Lucy whispered. I hope I'm making you proud. The photo could not answer, but Lucy felt certain her mother would approve. She had not raised someone who ran from difficult truths. She had raised someone who stayed present in the pain and did the work that mattered. Lucy opened a new document and titled it, The Truth About Human Anchors, How Politics Buried the Solution to Dragon PTSD. Then she started writing. The words flowed like they had been waiting years to be released. Her mother's story, the anchor program's success, the political decision to bury it, the cost of that decision in veteran suffering, the hope that came from bringing humans and dragons back together. She wrote through the night. By morning, she had 10,000 words. By afternoon, 15,000. By evening, she had a complete manuscript that told the whole truth, backed by data, testimony, and her mother's own journals. She sent it to Yeldon, Kravik, Sarath, Thera, and Nira for review. Within hours, all 5 confirmed it was ready. Lucy took a deep breath and pressed publish across every platform simultaneously. The article went live on news networks, academic databases, social media feeds, and military information channels all at once. Then she waited for the galaxy to respond. The explosion had been loud, but the truth, Lucy discovered, could be louder. The Galactic Council chamber had seen countless debates over its 800-year history, but few as contentious as this one. Lucy sat in the witness section, flanked by Kravik and Sarath. The public gallery was packed beyond capacity, with feeds broadcasting to billions across hundreds of worlds. 3 months had passed since Lucy published her article. Those months had been chaos. Death threats flooded her messages, but so did thank you notes from veterans, from families, from young dragons who finally understood why they struggled. The article spread faster than anyone predicted. Within a week, it had been read by over 1 billion beings. Within a month, protests erupted on dragon homeworlds demanding better veteran care. The conservative faction tried to suppress it. They claimed Lucy's data was fabricated, her testimony unreliable, her motives political. But then other anchors came forward. Then dragon veterans. Then Matriarch Sora released classified military documents that confirmed everything Lucy had written. The truth had momentum now, and momentum was hard to stop. Senator Krell stood at the central podium, his silver scales gleaming under the chamber lights. This council must reject this proposal. The so-called Crossroads Initiative is nothing more than an attempt to legitimize human influence over dragon military affairs. It is a mental health program, Lucy called out from her seat. Protocol said she should wait to be recognized, but she was done with protocol. Veterans helping veterans. Humans and dragons working together like they did during the war. The only influence involved is helping traumatized soldiers heal. The council speaker, an elderly dragon named Administrator Fen, gavelled for order but looked more amused than angry. Miss Morgan, you will have your turn to speak. Senator Krell has the floor. My apologies, Administrator, Lucy said, not sounding apologetic at all. Krell continued, shooting her an annoyed glance. The anchor program was classified for good reasons. It created unhealthy dependencies. Dragons relying on humans for basic psychological function. It was embarrassing then and would be embarrassing now. More embarrassing than our current suicide rates? A voice rang out from the council seats. Councillor Dren, a war veteran himself, stood slowly. More embarrassing than the fact that I lost 2 of my children to suicide? Both were soldiers. Both struggled with trauma. Both were told to be stronger. Neither got the help they needed because we were too proud to admit that humans understood something we did not. The chamber went quiet. Councillor Dren was respected, his pain genuine and visible. I read Miss Morgan's article, Dren continued. I also read the classified reports that Matriarch Sora released. The data is clear. Units with human anchors had dramatically better outcomes. Not slightly better. Dramatically better. We have spent 35 years pretending that was not true, and our veterans have paid the price. Another counselor stood. Then another. A wave of support rippled through the chamber. Not everyone, but enough to matter. Administrator Fen gestured to Lucy. Miss Morgan, you have traveled a long way to address this council. What exactly are you proposing? Lucy stood, her legs steadier than she expected. She had practiced this speech 100 times, but now that the moment arrived, she abandoned the script and spoke from her heart. My mother was Rachel Morgan. She served as an anchor in the 4th Deep Space Legion during the Void Border Wars. She was not a soldier in the traditional sense. She never fired a weapon or flew a ship. But she saved lives. 17 times she kept General Kravik from the edge of despair. She talked Lieutenant Nira through suicidal thoughts. She taught Dr. Sarath that treating others did not mean ignoring his own pain. She did this not with medicine or technology, but with presence, with compassion, with the simple act of being human. Lucy looked around the chamber. When the war ended, politics decided her work was embarrassing. That admitting dragons needed help somehow made them weaker, so they buried her. Buried all the anchors, scattered them, hid them, erased them from history, and when my mother tried to make sure the truth survived, they killed her. They called it an accident, but it was murder. They were so committed to pride that they would rather kill than admit the truth. She pulled out the photo, the one that started everything, and held it up. This is my mother. Young, alive, standing between friends who happened to be dragons. This is what they wanted to erase. Not just a program, but the idea that humans and dragons could be family, that vulnerability could be strength, that asking for help was not weakness. Lucy lowered the photo. I am not asking this council to apologize for the past. I am asking you to learn from it. Right now, young dragon veterans are suffering at rates worse than during the war. They are dying because they have no tools to process trauma, no permission to feel pain, no support that understands what they experienced. The Crossroads Initiative would change that. She pulled up data on her pad, projecting it to the chamber screens. This is a pilot program. 20 human anchors, all volunteers, all trained. They would be paired with dragon veterans who request their services. Everything voluntary, everything transparent, everything evaluated by independent researchers. We run it for 2 years and measure outcomes. If it works, we expand. If it does not, we try something else. But we have to try something because what we are doing now is not working. Senator Krell interrupted. And if dragons become dependent on these humans? If we cannot function without them? Then you learn to function with them, Lucy said simply. Partnership is not weakness. My mother's journals are full of things she learned from dragons. Honor, duty, loyalty, resilience. She became better by knowing them. They became better by knowing her. That is not dependency. That is growth. Hannah stood from the gallery, leaning on her cane. Administrator Fenn should have stopped her, but he did not. The old human anchor's voice carried through the chamber. I am Hannah Chen. I served with the 7th Legion. I am 71 years old now. The dragons I worked with saved my life as much as I saved theirs. When I was injured during a supply run, they carried me 17 miles through hostile territory. When I lost my husband years after the war, they traveled across the galaxy to attend his funeral. We were not human and dragon. We were family. She looked at Krell. You are afraid of that. Afraid that if dragons admit they need humans, it changes the power dynamic. But Senator, there are different kinds of power. The power to conquer is one kind. The power to heal is another. Maybe dragons have been focused on the wrong kind. More anchors stood. More veterans. The chamber filled with voices, all telling variations of the same story. Bonds that transcended species. Help that went both ways. Families forged in crisis that politics tried to break. Administrator Fenn gavelled for order repeatedly. Finally, the chamber quieted. He looked tired but determined. We will vote on the Crossroads Initiative proposal. Before we do, does anyone else wish to speak? A young dragon stood in the public gallery. Lucy recognized Lieutenant Voss, his leg still in a medical brace from the bombing. He limped to the speaker's platform. I am Lieutenant Voss. I served in the Outer Rim. I was diagnosed with acute trauma disorder and discharged. I tried to kill myself 3 times. The military gave me medication that made me numb but did not make me better. I thought I was broken, that something was wrong with me fundamentally. He looked at Lucy. Then I met Miss Morgan. After the bombing, when I was trapped under debris, she stayed with me. She did not just treat my injuries. She kept me present. Kept me from spiraling into panic. Later, when I was recovering, she visited. We talked about what I experienced. Not as patient and therapist, just as 2 people who understood that some pain cannot be fixed, only processed. Voss's voice strengthened. She taught me breathing techniques, grounding exercises, ways to recognize when my thoughts were lying to me, simple things that no one else had shown me. Within 3 months, I stopped having suicidal thoughts. Within 6 months, I was sleeping through the night. I am not cured, but I am alive. And I want to stay alive. That is because of a human who cared enough to stay present with my pain. He turned to face the council. You can vote against this proposal. You can decide that pride is more important than veterans like me. But if you do, you are saying that my life does not matter, that all the young dragons suffering in silence do not matter, that protecting our image is worth more than protecting our people. He bowed and returned to his seat. The chamber was absolutely silent. Administrator Fenn looked around at the council members. We vote. All in favor of approving the Crossroads Initiative as a 2-year pilot program, signal now. Lucy held her breath. Green lights appeared on the voting board. One after another, scattered at first, then accelerating. Green spread across the display like stars emerging at dusk. When the count finished, Lucy stared at the numbers. 217 in favor, 163 against. 18 abstentions. They had won. The chamber erupted in noise. Some cheered. Some protested. Lucy just sat down heavily, suddenly exhausted. Kravik placed his claw on her shoulder. "Your mother would be proud," he said quietly. "And terrified," Lucy added with a small smile. "Always both," Kravik agreed. Over the following weeks, Lucy watched the Crossroads initiative transform from proposal to reality. They secured a facility on Crosspoint Station, right near the Constellation Room. 20 human anchors arrived from across the galaxy, many of them original veterans from the war. They were older now, but they remembered. They still knew how to do the work. Dragon veterans started applying for the program within hours of it being announced. The first slots filled immediately. Lucy reviewed applications, conducted interviews, helped match humans and dragons based on compatibility and needs. She also trained. The older anchors taught her techniques they had developed during the war. How to recognize different trauma responses, when to push and when to hold space, how to balance compassion with professional boundaries. Lucy absorbed it all, adding her own observations, creating new approaches for a new generation. 6 months into the program, the preliminary results were undeniable. Participants showed a 73% reduction in severe trauma symptoms. Suicide attempts dropped to near zero. The independent researchers were astonished. The data was so strong that 3 other worlds requested permission to establish similar programs. Lucy stood in the center now, a proper facility with private rooms, group spaces, and a memorial wall. She had insisted on the memorial wall. It listed every anchor who died during or after the war, including her mother. Rachel Morgan's name was carved in stone, no longer erased, no longer forgotten. A young dragon approached Lucy, nervous but determined. "Miss Morgan?" "I applied for the program." "I was told to meet you here," Lucy smiled. "Call me Lucy. What is your name?" "Corporal Finn. I served in the border patrols. I have been having nightmares. Panic attacks. My commander said this program might help." "It might," Lucy said honestly. "It is not magic, it is work. But if you are willing to do the work, I am willing to walk with you through it." Finn looked at the memorial wall. At Rachel's name. "Your mother started this." "The original anchors. She helped start it," Lucy corrected. "But really, dragons and humans started it together. They just had to relearn that partnership was possible." She gestured to a comfortable seating area. "Come on, tell me about your service. Tell me what you are struggling with. We will figure out where to begin." As Finn started talking, haltingly at first, Lucy felt her mother's presence again. Not sad anymore, proud. Rachel had fought for this truth, died protecting it, and now it was alive again. Not just alive, but growing, spreading, helping others. That evening, Lucy returned to her apartment to find the 4 veterans from the 4th Legion waiting. They had brought food, an informal tradition they had developed. Once a week they gathered and shared a meal. "How was your day?" Farah asked. "Started intake for 5 new participants," Lucy said, serving herself from the various dishes. "One of them is Corporal Finn. He is very young, very scared, but willing to try." "That is all we can ask," Sarah said. "Willingness to try." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Kravik spoke. "I have been thinking about something your mother wrote, about humans staying present in pain. I finally understand what she meant. What is that?" Lucy asked. "Most species, when confronted with suffering, try to escape it or fix it immediately. But humans can just sit with it, bear witness to it. That presence, that willingness to stay when things are difficult, that is what makes the difference. Not solving problems, just not running from them," Nira added, "and teaching others that they do not have to run either. That feeling pain does not mean failing, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you are struggling and ask for help." Lucy thought about that, about her mother sitting with Kravik for hours humming while he cried, about Lucy herself staying with Voss under the rubble, keeping him present, about all the anchors throughout history who had done the simple, radical act of not running from someone else's pain. "It is not complicated," Lucy said, "but it matters." "It matters," Kravik agreed. They finished eating and cleared the dishes together. As the others prepared to leave, Kravik paused at the door. "Your mother died believing the truth would survive. She was right. Not just because you carried it forward, but because some truths are too important to stay buried. Love, family, partnership, healing. Those things always find a way back to the light." After they left, Lucy sat by her window and looked out at the station. Millions of beings from hundreds of worlds all living together in complicated proximity. She thought about the anchors working with dragons right now, helping them process trauma and find paths to healing. She thought about her mother, young and brave, doing the same work decades ago. Lucy pulled out the photo one more time. Her mother smiled back at her, forever young, forever standing between dragons who loved her. Lucy touched the tattoo on her own shoulder, the mark of the 4th Deep Space Legion. She had earned it now, not through combat, but through the work her mother taught her. The work of staying present, of not running from pain, of building bridges between beings who needed each other but were told they should not. "We did it, Mom," Lucy whispered. The truth survived, and it is making a difference. The photo could not answer, but Lucy did not need it to. She knew her mother would be proud. Terrified probably about the risks Lucy was taking, but proud. Lucy saved the photo and stood. Tomorrow she would meet with more veterans, help more dragons find their way back from the dark, build more partnerships that politics tried to prevent. The work was endless, but that was fine. Good work always was. She looked at the memorial wall data on her pad, at her mother's name carved in stone. Rachel Morgan had shown the galaxy that humans could help dragons survive. Lucy was showing them that the partnership could thrive. Some bonds once forged could never truly be broken. They just waited, dormant, for someone brave enough to recognize them and bring them back into the light. Lucy turned off the lights and headed to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new veterans, new chances to make her mother's sacrifice mean something. She was ready. The 4th Deep Space Legion always was.